Few missions matter more than helping people live healthier, happier, and longer lives. But turning that mission into reality at scale is one of the greatest challenges of our time. In this podcast, I speak with the people who are taking that challenge head on, health entrepreneurs who have dedicated their personal and professional lives to creating maximal impact, the true impact junkies. My name is Daniel. Join me as I speak with them about the stories behind the mission, the wins, the losses, challenges, and breakthroughs, with the hope of inspiring many more people to join the mission and the health revolution. Today's guest is Sarah, the founder of Sarah in All Sizes, a person who is an inspiration through her own weight loss journey of losing 210 pounds, and also an individual who is simply compelled to be in the service of others. Welcome to Impact Junkies. Sarah, welcome.
Yeah, hello, welcome. Thank you.
A pleasure to have you here in the studio and in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
Yes.
You took the long trip across the pond to visit us here. How are you enjoying it so far?
It's been amazing, wonderful. Copenhagen is beautiful.
It is, and the sun's just come out, so we're enjoying a bit of spring as well. You have been on, I was just about to say quite a journey, but it's, in the big story, it's been quite a journey. But as a health entrepreneur, your journey has lasted relatively short time now. You're still in the start, but you've achieved so much in that time. So you're 2.3 years in. Mm-hmm. Does it seem like that now? What's your time perspective like?
No, it feels like much longer. And I think it's because my social media started before that. Mm-hmm. And obviously my health has been a lifelong journey.
Exactly. But within that time, 2.3 years, I have some numbers to share with you. Even though it's relatively short time that you and your team have been coaching people, you've already delivered the equivalent of 615 years of combined coaching across all of your clients, if we stack them up end to end, which is crazy, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And in that time, they've lost quite a bit of weight as well, because you have clients who are on weight loss journeys. They've lost around 4 tons. That's around 9,000 pounds. The equivalent of 2 Ford F-150s up until now in weight loss. And you really communicate with them, which is something that we'll really get back to. Communication as a core in online health coaching. 163,000 audio and video messages is what you and your team have sent to people. And I think it is fair to say that you have changed the lives of over 1,300 women at this point. To just clarify how much you've changed your life, I had our team use some AI tools to scrape some of the data on this. And only yesterday, you had 25 clients in some way or form say that you have changed their lives. What do you think about that?
It's those little reminders. Obviously, with my online platform, I might have 100, 200, 500 people tell me a day that I've inspired them in some way, but it's those individual reminders of my clients telling me, hey, because of you, because of your program, I've been able to run around with my kids at the playground. Little things like that, will literally be the things that choke me up. It's not 500 people telling me wow, you're amazing, you've done great. It's the mom telling me, hey, because of your program, I have been able to fit on a roller coaster ride with my kid. And we went to Disney and walked around all day and we had a blast and I made memories with them. Those types of individual messages mean the most.
Hey guys, just a quick interruption from me because I have something to ask of you. If you enjoy these conversations, or maybe they even inspire you, please follow, subscribe, or rate the show wherever you're listening or watching. It would mean so much to me. And more importantly, it will help us bring even more impactful stories to more people. All right, let's get back to it. You've been working hard for the last just over 2 years on this. When you think about this impact and what it implies for people, is it worth it?
Oh, absolutely. When I set out online, I was hoping to really just inspire myself and hope to get through the process myself and maybe help a couple people along the way. But I never thought that I would get to personally be a part of people's process like this. And it's been rewarding in a way that I can never explain. I think in some ways it's been more rewarding than my own journey, because obviously my own journey, I'm still just one person. Getting the scale of it through my program and being able to help people really worth it feels
An
understated.
understatement, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. And helping people, it seems to be like a core in your story. We'll touch upon some of the other things that you've done later on, but I think if we just take a bird's eye view, ER, veterinary nurse, mortician, online coach, very different jobs, you can say.
Yes.
But this common thread of being something for someone else in a moment where they need you, in service of them, that seems to be a story that ties it all together. Where does that come from?
I'm not sure. I think it's just something that brings me joy. A lot of people work just to live. They work because it's a means to an end. They get paid. And I could do that. And I have done that. I've had jobs where I've had to do that. However, for me, I feel the most fulfilled when I'm doing a service for people that helps them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, I have found I best do that in very unique ways, in ways that most people can't. And I feel like it's almost because it's a difficult thing to do that not a lot of people can do. I feel compelled to do it because I know I wasn't given this skill for no reason. I must use it to help people.
Almost like discovering a skill or something that's unique,
Yes.
and then feeling obliged to apply it
Yes.
or implement it. I mean, one other, of course, amazing thing about you is your own story and your own journey that you've been on. You have, I could also say, I guess, single-handedly, because you did it a lot on your own. You have lost 210 pounds, starting from 370 pounds and down, which is, I think, hard to comprehend. At least for me, what does that kind of change actually imply? Not just physically, because that's one aspect of it, but also emotionally and as you as a person, because of course I have fluctuations, right? Which affect me not just physically, it might get stronger, but also how I feel in my mind. Can you even relate to what life was like back then? Like, can you really picture it and feel it, or?
Yes, because I remember it every day. Life constantly reminds me. I can't even do something like tie my shoe without having a very vivid memory and feeling of what it was like and how difficult it was when I was 370 pounds. Every time I can walk through an airplane aisle and not be constantly bumping each seat and each person in their seat and feeling embarrassed, it is a very clear reminder in my mind of how much easier my life is compared to then. And I don't think that I'll ever not constantly compare going through life this way to what it was before.
That's amazing. I never looked at it that way, that there's, of course, always constant reminders, and also in the little things that one does and how something feels.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective.
I think it's mostly in those two. And I think especially because, I mean, for 26, 27 years of my life, that's how I lived. And so I think it'll probably take at least another 30 if it's ever going to happen that I'm not going to constantly be reminded and think about how life used to be and compare it to how easy it is now. I think it'll take a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I genuinely enjoy the constant reminders because I think that I enjoy life exponentially more than somebody who never struggled with their weight, because I cherish those things. I cherish being able to walk through an airplane aisle and not bump into everybody, something most people wouldn't even consider being something that's exciting. But for me, that is something that's really exciting. And I think about it and I enjoy it.
All the little things that can be taken for granted very
Yeah.
easily. Now, you mentioned 26, 27 years of your life, that where life was like that. So I think it makes sense for us to take a step back to the beginning of those 26, 27 years and see, well, paint a picture for me of where did your journey begin or your story begin?
I grew up in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
My mom was a single mom. For me, for my health, it started very, very young. I can't actually remember a time where my weight was not the focus of my life.
Sorry, not just your focus, but also the focus of others? Or what?
Right. The first doctor's visit that I can ever remember is the first time that I heard the word obese. And I heard at every doctor's appointment since then. It's honestly only been recently I've gone to the doctor that I haven't heard that word.
And how old were you that first time?
Probably about 4.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they weren't saying it to me, they were saying it to my mom. But as a 4-year-old, you don't know what that means. And me looking back at pictures of when I was 4 now, I'm like, I really wasn't that big. And also, I mean, it became a constant thing in my life where somebody, if it wasn't me, although normally it was me, was worried about my weight.
Mm. And it seemed, I mean, this was a long time and a long development, right? Would you say that you had some things stacked against you in terms of taking care of your own health or not being overweight? What did that premise look like for you?
So, yes,
Mm.
growing up with a single mom, and I love my mom to death. My mom is my biggest cheerleader. And she also grew up overweight and she had her own struggles. But I think when you're a single mom, it's very easy to just go through the drive-through. After you've worked all day, you pick the kids up from the babysitter. You don't want to go home and cook, and I don't blame her.
Mm.
I don't want to go home and cook half the time when I was working a full-time job that I left my house, let alone then dealing with 3 kids, having their homework to do, their bedtime routine. And so fast food was a pillar for me growing up, really just anything convenient.
Mm.
I also had very bad asthma when I was a kid. And so when I was very, very young, I was hospitalized, like I was only a couple months old. And I think for my mom, that was very traumatizing.
Of course.
And so when I was younger, anytime I would cry, she was terrified I was going to end up back in the hospital. And so she would often give me whatever I wanted and also didn't make me do things I didn't want. So I never had to eat vegetables. If I wanted fast food or a little Debbie cake or something, I could have it. And I think that created a lot of food aversion for me growing up. I didn't like a lot of vegetables or
You had a
anything.
sensitive palate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And probably until I was about 26 years old, I would describe my palate as that of a 5-year-old. It was French fries, chicken nuggets, hot dogs, grilled cheese, all things that I still love. But I have expanded my palate much more and learned moderation.
Yeah.
I also never loved exercise
Mm.
growing up. I've just never been, until recently, I didn't love sports, but I was always the biggest kid in my class. So things like sports didn't come easy to me. I would feel embarrassed, so I just would avoid it. I also was diagnosed with PCOS when I was about 12 years old. I started my menstrual cycle super young when I was in 3rd grade.
Oh, wow.
I would get cysts on my ovaries that would burst, and it would keep me out of school for days. And so when I was in 8th grade, they actually started me on birth control to help regulate my hormones and
Which can also trigger gaining
also
weight at the
trigger
same time.
gaining weight. And then the PCOS on top of that is a hormone condition that also makes it very easy to gain weight and makes it very hard to lose weight. And so, yeah, I had a multitude of things working against me.
Many things stacked against you, which ultimately, of course, I guess led to you continuously gaining weight. And was this something that you were, let's say, conscious about in the sense of trying to change or trying to work against those, let's say, things that were stacked against you? Or was that in your
Yes,
field yet?
I did. My mom, even though like I said, she would take me to get fast food and stuff, but she was also aware that I was unhealthy. And so she would take me to the doctors. We would talk about different diets and stuff that they recommend me put on. And we would try things. She did always encourage healthy eating, but she was very purposeful to not be the type of parent that force food down your throat.
Because that can lead to something
That
else,
can lead to
right?
something else, exactly. And so she did the best that she could. And she would try to get me to exercise, go for walks, things like that. But it was something I tried to do when I was younger. I just think I didn't have the resources for it. It wasn't until I became an adult that I would say I got more serious about trying to figure out a solution for this problem.
What does that phase of your life look like? What else is going on there? in that
So I was 17 when I got married.
time?
I got married to my middle school sweetheart, and he joined the military. So I had free health care, which is great. And so I was able to like get regular checkups when I was an adult. And we would move around a lot, but I would use that to go to the doctor. They would talk to me about weight loss, of course, because when you're obese, that's what every doctor's visit is
Yes.
about. The first time that weight loss surgery was brought up to me, I was probably about 20 years old. And every time I changed doctors, every time we moved, they would bring it up to me. And I always thought, no, I'm going to do this on my own. There's, the huge stigma around weight loss surgery. We see it a lot now with GLP-1s. And so I fought that for a long time. So I would do other things. I've done all the fad diets. I've done keto, intermittent fasting, all of the Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig's, all of the fad diets. I've probably had about 5 personal trainers, and I would lose weight. And I'd lose about 50 pounds and keep it off for like 6 to 8 months. And then I would gain it all back plus some. And that normally would be triggered by either whatever I was doing wasn't sustainable.
Right.
Things like intermittent fasting and keto, not sustainable for me. I love carbs. I love food. Those were not sustainable choices for me. And we would move a lot, being a military family.
So you'd be in one spot for maybe a couple of months or a year or so and then move? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Usually about 2-ish years.
Okay.
And then I would be out of my routine. And then I would just fall back into old habits. And so I've probably lost 50 pounds and then regained some plus some 5 times.
Right.
From the time I was about 20 to 26.
I'm curious about one thing you mentioned, which was those doctor consultations, right? Because the first one you mentioned, you're 4 or 5 years old, all the way to in your 20s. More or less hearing the same thing from doctors about what you need to do, should do, ought to do.
Yes.
But are ultimately, I guess, struggling to do, of course.
Yes.
So what does that leave in you? Having those types of dialogues continuously be kind of the same. Sounds like a struggle.
A little hopeless, lost, because it was oftentimes, this is what you should do, but it's not just that easy.
Yeah.
You can tell somebody, hey, you should eat 1,200 calories a day. When somebody's eating 4,000 calories a day, that's not a great, just plan to give them. Telling me, well, I should lose 100 pounds. That's great. How do I do that.
Yeah. So what was missing, actually, if you're going to pinpoint that?
In hindsight, I think for me, what ended up being key in my sustainable weight loss was the education part that we're not taught in schools, that our doctors love them, don't have time to teach us in a 30, 60-minute checkup. And so I think it was me learning about nutrition, about fitness, about muscle building, about all these different types of health and how to actually implement that in my life that made a huge difference.
Yeah, that's where knowledge is abundant.
Mhm.
Implementation is where the real magic happens, which is a lot of what you also do as a health entrepreneur.
Yes.
Now, you also mentioned getting help, like trainers and this type of thing, but that didn't seem to do it either quite. So what was missing there?
No. So my trainers, and again, I loved them all.
Mm.
It was more, again, this is what you should do. They would maybe give me a workout. They would say you should eat these things, but I understand why. And so then once I left them and I didn't have them saying you should do this, you kind of forget or you ignore, out of sight, out of mind. And so those didn't really help me either, not in the long term. And I would also see nutritionists because, like I said, I had free healthcare.
Ah, yeah, of course.
But a lot of them also did not really, I can't tell you how many 1,200 calorie
Diets
diet
you've
plans
received from someone.
I've gotten. But they still did not explain to me the importance of whole foods, the importance of protein, why carbs aren't bad, what is a simple carb, what's a complex carb, all of those different things. And it wasn't until I took that time and those resources and really started probing them that I was able to learn those things.
Right. You also mentioned a resistance to bariatric surgery. Could you just explain what bariatric surgery is first, and then follow up potentially by why the resistance or what you were kind of avoidant of?
So bariatric surgery, for me, I had the gastric sleeve. There's a couple different types of bariatric surgery. I won't get into the two other ones because I'm probably going to explain them very poorly,
That's fair.
but it's bypass and then there's the duodenal switch. But I had vertical gastric sleeve, which is essentially where they removed 80% of my stomach and my stomach is now just kind of banana shaped. It also helps remove the part of your stomach that has the hunger hormone, or at least a lot of it, called the ghrelin. And so I was resistant to it because I really just social stigma. When they first mentioned it to me, I was 20 years old. The only people that I knew that had bariatric surgery were people in their 40s and 50s. And for the most part, it was kind of viewed as, well, those people did it because they just failed so much that was their last resort.
So doing it would kind of be affirmation.
Right.
Or seen as affirmation that one couldn't succeed in any other way.
And so I just thought, I'm young, I can do it on my own. Like, I can do it on my own. Because that's the other way that it's phrased as, well, you cheated. If you have surgery, then you cheated. You didn't do it on your own. And there's some kind of weird pride in that as a society of, if you're obese, you have to struggle and you can't feel happy about being healthy if you don't go through the most struggle.
You're struggling enough already, I would say,
Right.
in that state. So it's a bit of a paradox,
Right.
somehow.
So I it was a combination of resistance because I didn't know anybody my age that had it. And so I just kind of felt like it must be wrong. And then also that weird societal pride of, I can do it on my own. And I would like to say, if you're feeling that way, don't. Obesity is a medical disease, and there should be no stigma around receiving medical help for a medical problem. And it's really just one tool, and it should be looked at as a tool. If I had just had weight loss surgery and hadn't changed the rest of my life, I wouldn't be successful. People wouldn't come to me for coaching. People come to me for coaching because they see that I made all of the lifestyle changes that I needed to.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you how your perspective on that has changed, because you're clearly, well, you mentioned you had the surgery, but I think the whole way that you view these types of, let's say, interventions is very different now. One aspect of that is using it as a tool. Is there anything else that you could add to that?
Using it as a tool, and also just not being so resistant to the idea. The conversation should be between you and your doctor. It shouldn't be between you and
Everyone else.
everybody else. If the world is telling you you shouldn't do this, but the medical community, your doctor, your personal doctor that knows your personal history is telling you to, really consider it. I'm not saying full on do it, but consider it. Listen, get a second opinion, because there's probably a reason. Probe as to why they're telling you that maybe you should do this. Because my doctors were telling me because I genetically was predisposed to obesity just because of my family history, but also because I had PCOS. And so my doctors knew, like, hey, metabolically, you're probably not going to be able to sustain weight loss long term. But I just had no understanding that for whatever reason, my body is not going to act like maybe your body will. And my body is going to want to be obese forever. And that's unfair. It's really unfair. But we have to work with our bodies, not the bodies that we wish that we had. You know, like, I wish I didn't have the genetics of somebody who is always going to be obese, or my body wanting to be obese, but I do. And so I have to work with that body, not, the body of a 20-year-old who can eat 20 Twinkies a day and never gain a pound.
Yeah. It's a very strong point about making not just an informed decision that's based on you. Right? Because there could be a lot of noise out there, right? What you should do, the program, the solution, all the things that you were in before, right? With keto or whatever, which might work for some, but not for everyone. So getting to a point where you can block out the noise, have the confidence to make an informed decision about yourself, I think that's a very strong point, a strong message to make here.
Yes.
So clearly you got to a point where you changed your mind. Right before that decision, I guess, I'd like to just understand a bit more. What was your life like? What was it like being in your body at that time?
Hard. Very hard. I remember taking showers and coming out sweaty.
Yeah, because it was
Not because the water was hot, because it was a struggle to take a shower. I couldn't go bar hopping with my friends in downtown Nashville. I could, but my makeup was going to be running down my face. I was going to be sweating while they're all walking around having leisurely conversations. I'm in the back trying my hardest to act normal and to act like I'm not back there dying like I ran a marathon. I couldn't go to the mall shopping with my friends to just try stuff on. I could go with them in certain stores, and then I have to be like, okay, can you guys follow me to the plus size store now, because I don't fit into any of these. Doing things like kayaking. I distinctly remember the time that I realized I was no longer above the weight limit on a kayak. Like I could go kayaking if I wanted to and didn't have to worry about sinking because I was too overweight. If I could have even fit in the kayak. And most of the time I knew that that was also going to be a struggle. And so I refrained from a lot of life because of my size. And I like to think that I am a very lively person. And so it felt very isolating. It felt like I wanted to explode. Like I wanted more, but was imprisoned in a body that I could not get more.
Sounds very limiting. Is there any part of you that kind of mourns what life could have been at that time?
Yes. I try not to dwell on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me if I regret having bariatric surgery and if I think I could have just done it on my own. The only part of it that I regret is that I didn't do it the first time that they said it to me when I was 20. And I think about how much of my 20s I wasted because I was so stubborn. Now, by the same token, when I was 20, I don't know that I would have gained the knowledge that I needed to for that surgery to have been successful. So I try not to dwell on it because I don't know that the outcome would have been what it was when I was 26 and I did have it and I took that time to educate myself. But I have definitely mourned that time period that I feel like I lost.
Even without knowing what it could have been. I think that's the struggle that we have to deal with as humans. We can picture things, we can imagine what something would have been, but ultimately not really knowing what it would have led to.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have led to you being here right now,
Right.
in the way that you are. So what changed from there then? I'd like to hear that part of your journey.
So everybody usually wants the aha moment. Everybody wants the light bulb moment because they want their own. I'd be lying if I said that there was one. I think it was a lot of little things over time. However, if I had to pinpoint one or two, it was I signed up with a trainer at my local gym, Crunch, and I signed up with her in about March of 2021. And I did what everybody does in the beginning, where
What's
I was really excited, gung-ho, would work out. I was starting to eat cleaner, drink my water, do everything for probably about 2 or 3 weeks. And then what always happens with most of us, after that initial
Honeymoon
excitement,
phase.
you start to kind of slack off. Maybe you miss a workout. Maybe you work late, so you grab McDonald's. And that kind of starts a snowball effect. And that's what I did. So the first few weeks, I was great, checked in with her, did all the things. We were seeing some progress. And then once I started doing not so great outside of my sessions with her, I avoided the scale. I avoided doing those check-ins. I would see her, and then I would find a reason to leave and not actually check to see if we were progressing.
Which also, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but sometimes that can hit you kind of hard, right? Because it can seem as, let's say, a double failure sometimes. Because not only are you, let's say, obliged to meet with your trainer and do weigh-ins and stuff, which is now being avoided, but you're also not succeeding with what you'd set out to do. And what I hear often is that like those two things in combination can be quite rough emotionally, right? Because it's hard to find success in that, and there's almost no escape.
Right. And I think that ultimately was what kind of led to my pivotal moment, was after probably about 4 or 5 weeks of me avoiding. And I have the exact day. It was April 29th of 2021. She finally got me to get on the scale again. And at my gym, it was a body scanner. And when I started with her, I was 359 pounds. When I got on that scale again, I was 371 pounds. I was the most I had ever weighed. And I just was like, why? Why can't I just do this? I was upset with myself because not only had I once again started to try to make this change, but also then I had this other person that was doing everything they could to try to help me with that change. And I was failing them too. And my trainer was so sweet. She did not make me feel bad at all. But I did. I felt shame and guilt for myself because I wanted to do it for me. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I was just constantly proving to myself that I couldn't.
Right.
And I didn't view myself as that person. I didn't view myself as somebody who can't. And so there was a lot of frustration in that. But that day I was like, I never want to feel this feeling ever again. Never again. I never want to see the scale go up again. I never want to have to come to somebody who's trying to help me and say, hey, I'm not doing my part. And I never want to feel that way myself, of seeing that scale go up again, knowing I'm trying to see it go down. And so that day I decided to have surgery.
Okay, so that feeling pushed you to a spot where you could see things differently and
Right.
see the surgery which you were resistant to before as an actual option.
Yes. And I continued my sessions with her. I started seeing a nutritionist, and that nutritionist was the first nutritionist that ever just didn't give me a 1,200 calorie plan.
Good old 1,200 calorie plan.
I was eating fast food 3 times a day, basically every day. I was drinking a 2-liter of Coke every day. She didn't say, cut all of that out and eat this 1,200 calorie meal plan. She said, still eat that. But let's instead of getting 2 double cheeseburgers, a large fry, a small fry, a large Coke, and a small Coke, why don't we just get a meal, like a large meal, and none of the extra stuff? Do that for a couple weeks. And then we'll make that even smaller. And then maybe we'll swap out the fries for apples after that. And then maybe we'll start making turkey burgers at home with sweet potato fries or tortilla chips. And instead of drinking a 2-liter of Coke every day, why don't you drink 3/4 Coke and 1/4 Coke Zero and start doing that for a couple weeks? She was the first person in the nutrition space to ever explain it to me that way and be willing to go through that long process with me. And so I started doing that. And then I went to my husband and I said, hey, I'm doing all of this. I'm ready to have this surgery. I want to do this, and I want to prove to myself before I have surgery that I can make these lifestyle changes before that. And my husband was always super supportive. Every time I ever decided to lose weight, whether it was through keto or intermittent fasting or the 5 different trainers, he was always like, yeah, whatever you do, I will support you. Never did he suggest to me losing weight outside of me coming to him and saying, hey, I want to do this.
If it was in support of your narrative,
then he would, yes. Okay. This time, he did the same thing. But he said something to me that will stick with me forever. And he said, absolutely, like, I'm here to support you. I will support this decision. However, you tend to pick things up and never finish them. And I just want to see you finish. And that hit me so hard. Because it was, again, just another reminder that somebody else out there wanted the best for me, and I was standing in my own way. And I was tired of feeling like other people wanted my life to be better more than I wanted my life to be better. And he had always been supportive our whole relationship and oftentimes held himself back. And I could tell he did. He was always very fit. He was in the military. And he could do things like bar hopping with our friends. He could go kayaking and hiking, and he could do all those things. And I know he oftentimes chose not to or chose to hang back with me. And I hated that not only was that affecting my life, but it was affecting his as well. And it was affecting the life that we could have together. And so if I had to ever say that I had an aha moment, it was a combination of all of those things. Was him being like, I want to see you see something through all the way. And that just kind of shame and guilt of, why do I not want more for me than anybody else does? Why is it that these other people want more for me than I do?
Well, it seems from that point you forged a fire that's hard to put out.
Yes.
Now it was time to do something for yourself.
Yes.
You potentially want it more than anyone else.
Yes. And I did it all.
You did it all.
I did it all at once.
Tell me about that. Because you've also learned something now. I mean, you mentioned the dietitian, right? Which seems to be some big lessons. I mean, also which are applicable now to coaching. Don't remove everything at once, but let's start stacking these small wins. Practically, when I hear it, she's halved your caloric intake and all of these things, right? Which will lead to change. Because at this point, if you do that at 370 pounds, automatically you start losing a lot of weight. Right? So what else did you do now? Because now this is a very decisive moment. Like,
yes. It kind of was like once I started making decisions, I didn't stop. I had also, you mentioned me being a veterinary nurse. At that same time, for whatever reason, I guess I just was like, let's do everything. I decided to go to college. And being a military wife, that was something that I somewhat gave up to travel. A lot of military wives do go to school, don't get me wrong, but I'm somebody that needed to go to school in person. And so that was kind of something I gave up because we traveled so much. And so I was like, I want to go to college. Funnily enough, I went to college to be a mortician. There was a school about an hour from where I lived, and that was something that I wanted to also see all the way through. And I just knew it would give me such a sense of accomplishment to say that I graduated college. On top of that, I also started my social media. And I don't know if there's an end to social media to say that I saw it all the way through, but I would definitely say I've seen it through.
Yes.
I continue to see it through. It's definitely way more than I ever thought it would be when I started it. But I started that about 2 weeks before I had my actual surgery. So I had surgery in November of 2021. I started college in January of 2022. I had started losing weight officially in May of 2021. I lost 50 pounds before I had surgery. And then I graduated college, and 2 weeks before I graduated college, launched my own online business, which is also something I never saw for myself.
I mean, yeah, so you did everything.
Yes.
After that turning point. There's a couple of things I'd like to linger on. Firstly, the decision to go to college, I fully understand, but the decision to become a mortician is potentially not as clear a choice for everyone. So I'd like to understand that process a bit. What did that look like for you, and why that choice?
So we kind of touched upon, for me, I feel the most fulfilled in service to other people and doing a service that I feel is unique in the sense that not a lot of people can do it. When I was a veterinary nurse, something that I was uniquely good at, and it's not a skill I think anybody seeks out to have, was I was very good with the grieving families, with families that came in and maybe knew it was time, or maybe they needed to be told it was time. For whatever reason, I was very good with those families. And so my colleagues would often seek me out to help with those families. And I had a sense of joy and pride in that, not in the actual situation, but in knowing that I could maybe make that situation at least not as horrible as it could be. And then another event that happened prior to that, or during that, was my brother passed away about 6-7 years ago now. And when he passed away, I knew I didn't want my mom to have to deal with any of it. And so I took over all of his arrangements and made sure that everything went seamless so that my mom didn't have to deal with it. And that also kind of, I think, planted a seed in me of, this is something that I can do. If I can do that for my own brother, I can do that for other people. And so I knew I couldn't be a veterinary nurse forever. They don't get paid very well. You're in constant fear of a dog biting you in the face and disfiguring you. And so I looked into mortuary school. I looked into funeral directing. My mom had, weirdly enough, invited me to a page on Facebook where just morticians talk about their job. And eventually I was like, how do I do this? Because I think this is something I can do.
And I have that skill, whatever it is.
Whatever that skill
Right?
is.
Because it's such a unique skill to have. Be able to hold that space and create direction and not just comfort, but also have the conversations that need to be taken in those situations. That's a very unique skill to discover.
Yes. And I felt obligated to use it. And I found genuine joy in using it. And honestly, I've always said internet fame is fleeting. If I ever have to go back to it, I will. Even though I launched my online business 2 weeks before I finished college, I still finished college. I still took my boards and passed them. It was the most stressful time of my entire life. And I always look back at it anytime I go through anything stressful. And I'm like, if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything.
Sometimes it's good to have that benchmark where you're like, okay, I overcame that.
Yes.
I'll get through this as well. And we'll get to launching. You mentioned launching your business at this time as well. But I mean, one thing which is I find is very unique to this story is also that you started posting right before your surgery, you mentioned, right? So that's extremely early in let's say, a weight loss journey or a journey which has just begun. I mean, that's a lot to put out there.
Yes.
You know, because oftentimes you might see it's always looking back, right? And you basically have 4 years of documentation.
Yes.
Like going from your start, you had lost 40 pounds, but from 370 pounds, and then you put it out there, all the small steps and wins. Tell me, what compelled you to do that?
It basically was, I didn't see anybody else in that space. I only saw one other girl that was my age that had surgery, that had been posting online. Now that was it.
Right.
And I desperately wished I had seen any other faces that weren't 40, 50 years old talking about how they went through bariatric surgery. And so I just kind of felt like, well, I guess I need to be the representation that I'm not seeing. And I knew going into it, I could start posting. And even though obviously I didn't have the following I have now, even if it was just to my friends and family, they could watch me fail. They could watch me fall on my face. But I knew if I went into it with that mindset, I would fail. I posted telling myself like, no, I'm posting this. I'm going to start posting this. even though it's very early on, because I am going to be successful. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to see this all the way through, and people are going to get to see this from start to finish, whatever finish ever is.
Yeah, because that's a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being on the journey is sometimes more important than the ending, depending on the story. But I mean, you have some amazing content that has also gone viral multiple times, right? Because of your documentation. I mean, I remember there's one reel which you've put out where you're pushing the exact same prowler in the exact same gym, back and forth. And I believe that throughout the process of that reel, you lose like 190 pounds or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
Which is crazy. So I mean, you get a lot of traction and exposure.
Yes.
What's that like?
That was insane. That particular video, insane. I actually made that video one night avoiding my accounting homework for school. And I remember sending it to my best friend after I edited it. And I said, "Hey, does this look good?" And she was like, "Yeah." Within, I mean, a minute of that video being posted, it had 5,000 views, 10,000 views, 50,000 views, 100,000 views, 1,000,000 views within an hour. And I had a couple of videos go viral before that. That video was no accounting homework got done that night. None at all. And I think there's a large part of me that disassociates from my online presence.
How so?
Because when I really think about that video on TikTok alone has like 80 million views. If I think about 80 million people, it makes me want to throw up. I can't think about
too much
that.
to comprehend.
It's too much to comprehend. And so I try not to very often. I try to think about my online presence as that service, as this is me doing a service to people, of telling my story, making them feel less alone. I try not to focus on the actual numbers of people. I know it's a lot, like I know, but I try not to dwell on that aspect a lot because it kind of freaks me out.
Yeah. You mentioned the service, right? And it was clear what the service was or what it led to with the other roles. What would you say that service is driven by now, to share the story, to overcome something and be compelled to tell the story?
I think it's just that I know it helps people. I think it helps people feel less alone. I think it helps people feel like they can do it. I'm not somebody that had a lot of resources, that, I had chefs growing up. I went to private school. I didn't have any of that. I didn't grow up with fit parents that taught me how to, play football or nothing. I am as regular as they could come. I just struggled with obesity. If anything, I had a lot of disadvantages. And so I think just being able to tell my story online so openly, it was another skill that, again, I never sought to have. But once I realized I had it and realized it helped people, I have always felt compelled to do it, and I find a joy in doing it. And I see how it has helped people because they tell me. They tell me all the time. And I never would have imagined this ever being a skill or a job, but it is a wonderful thing that I have stumbled upon and been lucky enough to be thrusted into.
Yeah. So yet again, that pattern of stumbling upon a skill, but also seizing, like, understanding which service it can bring and then applying it. You mentioned people telling you all the time, right? I mean, I think going that viral and being that much out there in the ether also means that there's sometimes where people meet you and say something to you face to face versus the potential hundreds of comments. And sometimes these are deep felt things, right? Like
Mm.
the actual inspiration that what you share so openly leads to, or the change that you've created in them. What would you say is the big difference between hearing something in real life, a person in front of you, or the comments?
I think it's again that it's that individual, because the comments are just so, they can just get so mushed in together. And I am very grateful for all of them. They help me and remind me of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why it's important. But what really ends up like touching my soul and making me feel the most accomplished is those individual, because I get to put a face to these comments. I get to hear it. I get to see it on their face, how sincerely they're telling me, like, your story has changed my life. Like, just you going through this made me feel inspired. And now, like I said, even people I don't coach personally have told me about how at some point, like hearing my story, seeing some video clicked with them, and maybe they lost 50 pounds. And that to me is always so insane, that a single video or just following somebody online can have such a big impact in somebody's life. And for me, it's those things that, like, it's almost like when you work a job and you get paid every week, but then that bonus comes and you're like, ah, that Christmas bonus, like this year was worth it. It's like that. It's like little Christmas bonuses every so often.
Because that person in front of you, you can't disassociate from
Mm-hmm.
in the same way. And I guess it also becomes one of those things where the comments that potentially say something similar to what the person in front of you is saying, they become very real,
Mm-hmm.
right? These are actual stories, actual change, and life-changing moments. That
Yeah.
must be amazing
Yes.
and intimidating somehow to
Oh,
experience a bit of both, I imagine.
oh, absolutely. I'm very introverted. If people ever meet me out in public, I always tell them, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so shy and introverted, and people don't realize that because of my online presence, but it's the disassociation. It is super intimidating to have people come up to me in public, which sounds weird, because you would think people would be intimidated by me. I promise you it's the other way around. I get so scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing or come off it the wrong way, or my shyness is going to come off the wrong way. But yeah, it is super weird. I've also had a lot of people not come up to me but DM me later that they saw me somewhere. So that's also a whole other beast now, where I'm like, people are seeing, I'm being perceived in public without realizing
Yes,
it.
yes. That's a whole different beast, I can see.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned this a couple of times now, stumbling upon a skill, observing it for what it is and seeing the change or the service that it can provide for others, and then deciding to do it. Because now you're a person who does does it, right? Um, you while growing your online presence through what you're sharing and the journey and this whole process, right? It leads to a lot of inspiration, but also people wanting more of that service from you, a coaching service. Tell me about getting into that and just the transition real quick.
So people have been asking me for probably at least a year before I actually started, will you coach me? And I would always tell them no. I'd say I'm in college to be a funeral director. I'm not certified in that. I don't have anything to give to you. And I knew I could. I could have taken their money and coached them, because I knew I had that authority, or at least they perceived that I did. But it didn't feel ethical to me. And that's one thing that I've really tried to stick with despite this online thing, is I still want to do this whole thing in an ethical way. And so when I was approached by Linus and they were like, hey, we have everything. We have this platform and we have the structure. We have all of these things in the app. We have meal planners, workout plans. We have a chat. We have community groups. We have all of these things. You just have to plug it in the stuff and make it your own. I was like, oh, all right. This is what life is compelling me to do. This is the direction that I need to go. Even though I was in school, I could feel life was pulling me to that direction. It had been something that people had asked me for a long time. And I felt like I could help more people doing that than what I was currently in school for. Like I said, internet fame is fleeting. That could all come later. But right now, this is where life was telling me I could help the most people. And so I got certified, I got my certification, and I started my business. And I will definitely say, I can confidently say I have helped more people doing this in the last 2 years than I would have being a funeral director.
Amazing. And if we fast forward now, I'd like to pick your brain a bit on all the experience that you have now from the last 2.3 years, because I think that the journey that you've been on, an amazing journey that you've been on, and also potentially the type of clients that you have, right? Mostly females, some of them larger weight loss journeys. A lot of your clients starting at 300 pounds, wanting to people that can mirror themselves in your story, but also a group that requires some specific tactics and skills, new skills as a coach, which you now do. You've mentioned one aspect of this, or I'd like to touch upon one aspect, which is if someone's on a larger weight loss journey, you can't just, like you've experienced before, give them the meal plan, the 1,200 calorie meal plan that you'd received from you were an early teen up until your 20s. You can't just give them a workout plan. What else do you need to kind of take care of before that journey can actually begin with them?
So in my program, we like to focus on more holistic health. So it's not just our physical health, it's our mental health, it's spiritual health. And so you have to know each individual client. I can't tell people exactly what my program is going to look like because your program is going to look different than the Girls Next to You program. Even if you're somebody who was 300 pounds, had bariatric surgery, is 45 years old, the girl next to you might have the same demographics. I can guarantee you your plans are going to be different.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that's almost two aspects there. So there's one which is a holistic approach where we also need to account for mental well-being, spiritual well-being, as you also coined it, and then personalization, right? Not every plan can be the same if you want people to get to the same place.
If your goals might be the same, but your plans will be different. And a lot of my coaching, especially in the beginning, is getting to know the individual. I would say in my program, you can expect at least a couple of weeks where we're just going to be chit-chatting. We might give you a plan. We don't intend for you to start that plan right away. I am all about not overwhelming my clients because I know as somebody who was 370 pounds and started a lot of plans and would quickly feel overwhelmed and give up, it is better to do slow and steady and sustainable so that you're not in this constant cycle than to be in the constant cycle and to be super gung-ho in the beginning and overwhelm yourself and give up. I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have come on that I can tell are super gung-ho. And this might seem very counterintuitive, but I have told many clients, like, pump your brakes. I need you to slow down. I love your enthusiasm, and I want you to keep that enthusiasm, but I want you to take a couple steps back as far as you wanting to plow through this process. because if you do that, you're going to continue a cycle. Let me take you through this slowly so that in the long run, you don't have to do this again. You don't have to go through this whole signing on with a coach and this whole onboarding thing, going through a program again. My ultimate goal with my clients is they don't have to sign up for anything else anymore. They will feel once they leave my program, they understand what health looks like for them and feel like they have the tools to adapt it as life changes. Now, if they want to go on and be bodybuilders or power lifters or anything like that, you might have to sign on with a different program. But as far as just you fitting health into your normal everyday life, I want my clients to feel like they understand that when they leave my program.
Right. So you've mentioned now a couple of key things. There's holistic, there's personalized or individualized. And then one other thing that you just alluded to was connection, right? And human connection. There's a lot of dialogue, it seems, in that, which is also another misconception in this potential, right? Sign up, get a plan. But you're addressing something else here. What does that connection part mean for you, and how do you apply that?
I think the connection part is everything. I like to tell my clients every relationship, whether it's a husband and wife, it's a kid and a parent, it's a teacher and a student, it's a boss and employee, they're all built on communication, but they're strengthened through tough communication. And when we're doing something as big as we're doing, which is changing their life through health, which to me is the most important thing, that means we're going to be best friends. Like we have to be best friends. You got to tell me stuff that makes you uncomfortable. But if you do that, then we can start to figure out, like, why have we been in this cycle? And how do we break it? And what are the small steps we can start to take to start breaking it? And not only that, but we're trying to build new habits on top of breaking old habits. And so for us in my program, it's a lot of communication. And we'll do whatever my clients prefer as far as communication. We like to do voice notes or videos if they just want to message us through the text message part, they can do that. But really, it is a lot of communication. We'll have clients that will send us a picture of each of their meals. Maybe they're a client that doesn't want a calorie count or doesn't understand it. It makes them uncomfortable, whatever it is. I have clients that will send pictures of each of their meals throughout the day. Just that's how they keep accountable. That's how they get feedback on their meals. They don't want to put it into, a calorie counter. That's fine. And that's a great way of communication. I tell clients, even if we don't respond back right away, if it's 2 a.m. and you're upset about something and you feel like you're about to binge eat or something, or even if you do, but you want to message us, do that. Because you messaging us, even if we don't get it until the next day, we can look at that situation with you now and go, okay, this happened. How do we prevent this from happening in the future? What steps can we take? And so I love the communication aspect of the program is really the key to it, because that's not only how we personalize your plans, it's how we get to know you as a person. And in my program, you have to be willing to let us get to know you as a person for you to be successful. And that's hard. It's really hard to come to people and admit that you're doing things that are counterintuitive to what they're telling you to do. But at the end of the day, that's what's going to get us to help you. That's where you're getting the most bang for your buck. If you're not communicating those things with us, how are we supposed to help you?
And this leads me to the last point, I think, because it sounds like a lot now, what you're talking about, right? There's communications, all this, but the beauty of what you do now is being able to do all of that at scale, right? Because without scale, you mentioned this before, was that you're pretty sure now that you have a larger impact can create more change for people because you chose to do what you're doing now. So what are your thoughts on that last component there, the doing this at scale without compromising the quality of it?
That is something that I worried about a lot once I started my business because it grew so fast, so much faster than I ever could have imagined. And I knew that that meant that I could not coach everybody individually myself, but I still wanted to have that large impact. So I needed a team. I needed a team that aligned with me and my goals and my message and the values that I had. And that's not every personal trainer in the world. And so it was a very, very hard process of kind of relinquishing that part of my program and trusting others to have those same values. Trust me, I vetted them a lot. However, I do feel confident now. All of my coaches have been with me for a year or more. And sometimes I'm like, you guys might coach better than I do. Like they are so good at taking the vision that I had when I first started and the vision that has evolved over time and taking the values that I wanted in this program and implementing it and making each client feel like this program is their program. It's not a cookie cutter program. It's not, something that anybody could just buy off the shelf. Like this is for them. They're having a relationship with this person and that person is helping them figure out health and how to implement health into their life.
And like we started off speaking about, combining these things, holistic, personalized, connection, and scalable, it's having an enormous effect, an enormous impact. Ultimately, tying these things together is what led to the example which I gave you, 25 messages only yesterday, one day in this month, from people saying directly to you or someone in your team that you are changing my life, which I feel is an amazing story. You were once a person, Sarah, who did not finish. I would say you've changed that dramatically. You had a turning point, which was a phase, right? There was multiple things which allowed you to not become that person anymore. But what I see now is that you are now that turning point and that person for so many other people, right? That one thing, that catalyst, which actually allows them to finish. What's it like to be that person for others now?
It's overwhelming in the best way. It's really all I could ever want. Because like I said, I think health is the most important thing. All we're left with, everything else could go away. Everything. Your house, the shoes on your feet, your car, all of that can go away. Your body is the only thing at the end of the day nobody can take from you. And so having an impact on how people treat that body that they have, having a positive impact. I can't think of anything on this earth that I would find more value in doing.
And I think for a lot of others, actually stopping that pattern that you found yourself in as well, trying, not achieving, and going beyond that to create true change.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
You've built so much in such a short time and impacted, well, many people. I'm sure you'll be impacting many more. So I'm just curious. I hope we're not talking about finishing anything, because this is a journey as well.
Yes.
But what do the next chapters, do you think, look like? What is something that you look forward to in this journey as a health entrepreneur?
I think obviously business growth is always great. Something that, again, is a unique skill that I think I have found of mine is talking about my journey. And so my hope in the next year or two, I would like to start doing that. I feel like that is what my next step. Coaching is always going to be there. Coaching's always going to be there. But I would love to be able to use that skill on literally a broader stage. I think that words have a lot more power, and I'm realizing that through these last couple of years online. And really, that's what I do with my clients every day. It's just little motivational speeches every day to, 20, 30, 40, 50 different people. And so that is what I would like to do next, I think, is getting into that motivational speaking space.
Very interesting. And words do have power, and I would say your words have had power on this show today. I'd like to say thank you very much for sharing your amazing journey with me and with everyone else. We'll be back with a lighter session on the walking pads in just a minute. All right, Sarah, welcome to the walking pads.
I'm excited.
Yeah, try not to fall off while we talk. We're going to do a blind ranking here. And what I want you to do is rank on a scale from 1 to 10 the impact that the elements I tell you have on people's health, happiness, and longevity. That makes sense?
All right.
Okay, so the first one is focusing on mental well-being in a weight loss journey.
10.
10.
10.
It's up there. Short reason why.
Our mental health affects our physical health.
There we go. Focus on whole foods.
6.
6, okay. Fair answer. It's not the end all be all. Okay, vibration plates.
3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very helpful if you have lipedema. That's really it.
Just putting that out there.
Yes.
Okay. Community.
9.
Having social interactions, people to support you. Okay. Last one, gut microbiome.
7. Only because I just don't think it's something people should pour research into and get themselves confused about.
Okay. That was a curveball as well, so that's bad.
Yes.
Okay, so on a different note, you've been on quite a journey, losing 210 pounds, starting at 370. I'm curious, what is one habit or routine that has stuck with you throughout that journey that you will keep doing?
Drinking my water throughout the day. Meaning, I try not to rush it. At the end of the day, I'm not like, oh, I didn't drink my water. I have to drink a whole bunch. I do have one of those water bottles that has the times, and I do try to stick to those times.
Okay, so hydration would be the thing. All right, lastly, that one song right now, because I know you're an avid gym goer, right? So that one song right now that'll get you through any workout.
Mount Everest by Labyrinth.
There we go. Put it on in your next workout. Let's see. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.